So this is gonna be my new risotto recipe that is born out of my last 2 experiences with risotto while in Italy. One of those experiences was a great one, the other one was a bad one. But those 2 experiences have now given birth to what is now one of my favorite new risottos, risotto with sausage and peppers. So to get started, we need to make our red bell pepper sauce, so let's just jump right into it. First thing to do is roast these peppers. Now I've done this before in the oven, but today I'm gonna show you how to do them on the stove while explaining the first part of this story. Just toss the peppers directly onto the stovetop and turn the flame on to medium. And what you wanna do is you almost just wanna char the skin of the peppers, not only to cook the flesh of the pepper, but also to release the skin from the flesh so that they'll easily remove later. And rotate as needed till they're charred all over. And now this recipe is inspired by the good risotto experience. When I travel to Italy, it has some influence on what I want to cook when I get back. And a few weeks ago, I was dining at the great restaurant Rimessa Rascioli in Rome. And I ordered a bell pepper risotto with raw shrimp on top. And as you know, I make a red bell pepper sauce on this channel that is one of my personal favorite recipes. So I ordered it to see how it measured up, and it was very similar in flavor, but just in a risotto. And the risotto was amazing, so I knew I had to make a variation of it when I got home. Now the peppers are charred all around. They'll get thrown into a Ziploc bag and sealed to allow them to steam for another 15 minutes until the skins can easily rub off. We're gonna let these steam for about 15 minutes. While they steam, we can prepare the other ingredients for the sauce. Next to cut is I need 1 onion sliced thin, 2 cloves of garlic sliced thin. I'm just gonna take the top off and the root end and cut it in half. And again, it's stock season, so you might wanna save these scraps. And then we just wanna slice along the curvature of the onion, making sure the fingertips are safely tucked underneath. Once you make it about 1/4 of the way through the onion, push it forward and repeat the same way you started. Next up we have the garlic. We'll cut them in half, remove the papers. Now just slice the garlic very thinly. Onions and garlic are sliced. Now it hasn't been exactly 15 minutes, but I can feel that these guys are ready to be peeled. And you can almost start to do it right in the bag. Gonna use some gloves because it is hot. And if you could see it just by rubbing the bag, rubbing the skins off the peppers, they just sort of fleck right off. And it's a good preliminary thing to do before we get in there with our hands and start really cleaning them properly. Now we can take them out of the bag, using a knife, scrape the skins and the charred bits off of the peppers. And then we can tear the pepper open, remove the seeds and stems, and then I just like to clean up the ribs and the seeds from the inside. I give it a quick little rinse, and then we can get into slicing, in which I'll take about 1/2 of one of these peppers. I'll cut it into 3 thick slices, and then I'll stack them up and cut them into these thin little strips. So now for the sauce, we have our ingredients, which are the peppers, the onions, the garlic, some heavy cream. If you like it spicy, I add these Calabrian chili peppers, this little chopped up spread, tomato paste, and vodka. Now the sauce is kind of a riff on a vodka sauce anyway. However, we're using wine to make the risotto later, so you can absolutely substitute this with wine at this stage if you don't have vodka. But I'm a vodka drinker, so I do. So now we can go make the sauce. Now get a large saute pan or a saucier and preheat it to high heat and add a few tablespoons of the olive oil and then get the onions in. Season them with salt and let those cook on high heat and try and get a nice golden brown char going on them, just like you might when making a sausage and pepper hero. It's not really a true caramelized onion we're going for, it's more of a blend between caramelized and a fried onion. And if they're frying too fast, lower the heat slightly. And if they aren't developing any color, just adjust the heat back up. And once they're slightly fried and caramelized, then we can go ahead and we can add the peppers into the mix, season them, and cook the peppers with the onions for a few minutes and let those onions deepen in color even more. And then we can go ahead and add the garlic. And if it needs a little bit of oil, we can add it. Let the garlic cook. It's not gonna really burn because there's so much in the pan right now, so give it time to really cook down and soften. And then we can add in the Calabrian chilies. Maybe about a tablespoon of it, depending on how hot you like it, or you don't have to add it at all. Get those mixed in, caramelized, and then we can take a little bowl and we can start to pull out maybe like 1/8 of a cup of some of the sauteed onions and peppers and place them in that little bowl that we're gonna save and treat later for our garnish. Then add 2 tablespoons of tomato paste. Get that mixed in and caramelized for about a minute or so. Once the vegetables are coated in that tomato paste, kill the heat and deglaze the pan with that vodka. And then just cook that down till it's almost completely evaporated. And then we're gonna add add just under a pint of heavy cream. I like to add most of a pint and save a little bit just to adjust the consistency later, but we're slowly going to work in that cream into the mix just so it doesn't break. And once I've added most of that pint in and the cream is thoroughly mixed into the vegetables, we can remove it from the heat, add it to a blender, and we can puree it until smooth. And if it were just a little too thick at this point, I would just add a little bit more cream to thin it back out, but it's nice. Get it into a bowl, and then we can set it off to the side until we're ready to use it. Now in a few months, I'll be turning 38, so I ain't no spring chicken anymore. And let me tell you, the older you get, the harder it is to keep working out. So I'm always looking for convenient and easy ways to get stronger as I get older. And I've added a new tool into my routine thanks to our sponsor today, Copilot. Copilot is an affordable fitness coach app that provides personalized workouts tailored to your goals and available equipment. And you get accountability and support from a real personal trainer with the flexibility to work out on your own schedule. Simply put, Copilot is fitness made easy. To get started, they match you with a trainer and set up a video call to meet them and discuss your goals and what you want out of your workouts. I told them all about my busy schedule and the injuries to my shoulders and hip from being an absolute animal in high school football. I also told him I'd be traveling to Italy, and so we created a workout that could be done in 10 minutes without any equipment anywhere that I am. Now, one of my first workouts was while I was in Italy, so I opened up the app, got started stretching and doing my workout even from a hotel in Rome without being annoyed or interfering in my day. Each workout is slightly different, working and strengthening those trouble areas I have in my hips and shoulders, and I can watch a real human performing the workouts while I do them to make sure my form is proper. The workouts are timed so you know where you are in the workout and how long you have to go, and they even have built-in rest periods. You can add notes to your trainer like, this workout was a little too easy, can we make it harder next time? And then you could submit your workout to your personal trainer so they can keep track of how you're doing in your progress. It's kind of like it's all set up for me. I don't even have to think about it. I just open the app, spend 10 minutes working out, and I'm done. And now I feel like I'm getting stronger, I have a little less pain, and I'm getting more flexible the older I get. If you want to give this app a try, click the Copilot link down in the description and you're gonna get 14 days free to try this app with a personal trainer of your own. So the way that I see it is, you've only got pounds to lose, so why not give it a shot? Grab the link and let's get back into the rest. Now we can prepare one of the garnishes. This is a semolina loaf of bread that has been dried out because I want to make croutons out of it. And this is typically what I would get like an Italian sausage and pepper sandwich with growing up. And my grandfather delivered this bread. So in his old yellow Volkswagen Beetle, back in the day, every time I'd get in it, it would just smell of this bread. And to this day, there's just something about it that I just see it, I grab it, even if I don't eat it, I just want it there just to nibble for a taste of nostalgia. So what we're gonna do is cut this dried out old piece of loaf into little tiny cubes of bread. In my opinion, the smaller the better, so you can get a nice distribution of these bites of croutons with each spoonful of risotto, and then get them into a sheet tray. Now, although this is dried, there is still a bit of moisture left in there, so I'm gonna pop this in the oven first at 375 for about 5 minutes to just dry out any remaining moisture from the bread before I oil and toast it. And I will set a timer because I am a notorious and habitual bread burner. Now remember those peppers and onions we pulled out? Now what I'm gonna do is get them on the cutting board and I'm process them into a fine mince. This will act as another garnish for the recipe. I'm going for like a relish consistency. Now to that, I'm just gonna season with a little bit of salt, some extra virgin olive oil, just a touch of red wine vinegar, a little squeeze of lemon juice, and just stir that up, and then let that marinate. Set it off to the side. The timer's done, so let's check on the bread. Now they're fully dried out. We can add some olive oil. Make sure every piece of crouton is just covered in a little bit of that oil. Hit them with some salt. Now back in the oven until they get crispy, crunchy, and brown. And we'll set a timer for 8 minutes. Ooh. Okay, perfection for once in my life. About 10 minutes in the oven and you get this. Hit them with a little salt, and then these guys are done. They go off to the side. Next up, we've got our sausage. Now, per person, I don't need a ton. Then I'm just gonna take it out of its casing and just make the smallest little sausage meatball with it. And now this brings me to my second risotto story from Italy, which was a year ago when I took about 16 of you guys, fans of mine.
Look at these guys.
To Italy on a trip by a company named Trova Trip, which was a garbage company that I wouldn't recommend and caused us all sorts of problems, one of which being the first restaurant at the first meeting of me and all these guests. We were served a 3-course tasting menu. The first course was a risotto alla salsiccia, a sausage risotto. It didn't look like risotto, it looked like rice, and on top were these huge chunks of meat, assumingly sausage, that was totally inedible, and I had to spit it out in front of these fans that traveled to Italy with me who I've taught how to make risotto at home. So it's very embarrassing, but I do love sausage and risotto, so I figured the combination of the good experience plus the bad might create something great, and in this case, I think it happened. Just looking to fill up this plate with little balls of sausage. And if I fill this plate up with little balls for a garnish, that should be enough for 3 to 4 portions. And this is just a small little side plate. So now we've got our sausage. Then we need a little bit of wine, a little bit of some chicken broth. If you're gonna use a store-bought, use a good brand, please. I have a blend here of Pecorino Romano and Parmigiano Reggiano. I find I like that blend nicer than just using one or the other. Some cold butter in the refrigerator, and then our beautiful red pepper sauce. And we can keep the garnishes off to the side. I'm getting my 3-quart saucier or any high-rimmed pan on high heat. And once the pan is hot, add a couple tablespoons of olive oil and add those little sausage meatballs and season them with salt. And let those meatballs sear hard on that one side. I forgot the risotto, so we're using Vialoni Nano, special for risotto. And I'm gonna measure out about a cup. Now I'm gonna shake the pan to see if those meatballs will release on their own, and I'm not gonna touch them until they'll naturally release from the pan. And then when I do, I'll shake them up with a slotted spoon, just so that I can get every side browned nicely. One thing I forgot to do is get my stock hot, so I'm gonna pour that in a pan and get that on the heat, start simmering it. Keep the heat high so they cook fast, but they don't overcook. And once brown on all sides, remove with a slotted spoon and get them in a plate and set those off to the side for garnish later. Then we can add the rice. Get the rice coated in that sausage fat and cook for a couple minutes, moving around until it becomes fragrant and nutty. Then add some white wine to deglaze, maybe a cup, cup and a half. Cook that down till there's almost nothing left. And I actually like to use a spatula for this. And once I can swipe the spatula through the risotto and see the bottom of the pan, then I can start adding 1 ladle of stock at a time, stirring the risotto, but you don't need to stir it constantly. You can stir it for 20 seconds, then let it cook. Come back in a minute or so, stir it, let it cook. Then again, when you swipe the spatula through the risotto and you can see the bottom of the pan, then you add another ladle of stock. And you're gonna repeat this for about 18 to 20 minutes. And at that point, when most of the stock is gone, you're gonna start to taste it for doneness. It's still a little crunchy and I need some salt. So I'm gonna keep cooking it, adding a ladle at a time, constantly giving it tastes so that right when it's perfectly al dente, we can move into the next phase of the risotto. Tastes good to me. Now the risotto's cooked. I'm just gonna give it a little bit more stock, and then I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna add maybe a half cup to a cup of the bell pepper sauce. I'm gonna stir it in and get that worked in nicely, and I'm gonna allow it to cook for a minute or two. We added a new element, so I'm gonna give it one last taste and adjust the seasoning. And then I'm gonna add butter to what is too loose of a sauce to serve right now. But the butter and the cheese is going to tighten it all up. So we can kill the heat, work in the butter until it's completely dissolved, and then we can take our cheese blend, grab a hefty handful of it, and work that into the risotto. And as I mix it and stir it and gently melt that cheese into the risotto, the sauce was thickening up. And when I toss the risotto in the pan, you can almost see it behave as one homogeneous blob. Something that looks like waves crashing on the ocean. And that's usually the look and sound of good risotto. Then we're ready to plate. We're gonna pour a few spoonfuls of that risotto right into the center of the plate. We're gonna swirl the plate around so we get a nice thin layer of the risotto, and then we can start to garnish it. We're gonna take some of those sausage meatballs and we're just going to scatter it across the top of the risotto, followed by little pops of that bright, acidic, sauteed bell pepper and onion relish. Then we're gonna take those little tiny croutons and we're just gonna fill in the gaps with those croutons. Then finish with the extra virgin olive oil and a little bit more cheese. And the idea of the garnishes is that when you take a spoonful, you kind of get a little bit of everything in each bite, and all those flavors come together to create utter joy in your mouth. It's so good. It's nostalgic. It's packed with flavor. It has texture and a little bit of acid in that onion and pepper relish. It just pops the whole thing in a very subtle way. Just an absolute joy to eat. It's that good. Now you gotta be crazy not to make this recipe. It's gonna be down in the description, along with my co-pilot link. That's all that I've got today. I'll see you next time. Until then, take care of yourself and go feed yourself.